Okay, so Marvel are about to do something really catastrophic with the Spider-Man character. Now, in recent times, I might be slightly known as jumping the gun, I guess you could say, when it comes to future Spider-Man projects. I mean, my video on Ultimate Spider-Man issue 2 wasn't received very well, but my bad, am I right? The main criticism that I got for that video was people just telling me to wait for the full series to be out before judging the whole thing, and I completely get that, and I take that on board. Except, I'm about to do it again. Today, I'm going to be ranting about Greg Weisman's Spectacular Spider-Man, which is going to be coming out this March, because the cover and description of issue 3 of the series reveals to us that yes, Gwen Stacy is coming back. This is a horrible idea, and I'm about to tell you exactly why. First of all, I know people will tell me that the book isn't even out yet, so I don't know what version of Gwen Stacy this is. However, as you'll learn throughout this video, that's not actually going to be my main issue with this. I'm fully aware that this will not be the original version of Gwen Stacy. However, the mere idea of Peter Parker going on a date with a version of this character is completely detrimental to the stories that have come after her death in the 70s. And if you're not fully aware what is going on, essentially, in Greg Weisman's new series, The Spectacular Spider-Man, which will follow both Miles and Peter on their adventures together, in issue 3, Miles Morales is going to be going on a date with Kamala Khan, and Peter Parker is going to be pairing up with, of course, Gwen Stacy, of all people. What? Does Marvel actually realize how bad this is for the character? Now, I've done copious amounts of research for this book in preparation for this video, and nothing I can find suggests that this won't be in the 616 universe. So yes, this is going to be the same character that had to deal with Gwen's death all of those years ago. Speaking of Gwen's death, I've got to emphasize, in my opinion, I believe Gwen Stacy's death is the second most important death in Marvel Comics history. Now, of course, I'm a Spider-Man nerd, so I'm pretty biased towards this, but I believe the two most important deaths in Marvel Comics history are, of course, number one, Uncle Ben's death, which without we wouldn't even have Spider-Man as a character in the first place, and the second most important death in Marvel Comics history, I believe, to be Gwen Stacy's death. And I believe this because Gwen Stacy's death actually had a very similar impact to Uncle Ben's death in terms of the stories that followed. Without the death of Gwen Stacy, we wouldn't have had many of the greatest stories between Peter and MJ in the 90s. We probably wouldn't have even had stories like Kraven's Last Hunt, or Spider-Man Blue, or Spider-Man Life Story, and we wouldn't have had films like The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The cultural impact of Gwen Stacy's death as a character wasn't just impactful for the character himself, but was impactful for the fans and the audiences, and there was a massive cultural shift in Spider-Man as a character. And that's affected so many people growing up, affected so many adaptations of the character coming after as well, and just overall her death had a massive impact in comics in general. This was one of the first main love interests in comics history that actually stay dead for a very long time. Even though, yeah, they've tried to bring her back with many other incarnations, which we'll actually get to and talk about, she was genuinely one of the first main characters that stayed dead and wasn't coming back at all. Bringing her back is going to completely undo everything that that death stood for. Now, I must emphasize, I am not against bringing Gwen Stacy back altogether. For example, I do love Spider-Gwen and everything that she stands for. I believe that that character is a perfect way to actually reintroduce Gwen Stacy to the world of Marvel Comics without actually reiterating the same character from the original comics themselves. Spider-Gwen is different, but it also allows you to explore another avenue of Gwen Stacy that we have never actually previously seen, which I personally really like. However, the main issue that I have with all of this is that it isn't just Gwen Stacy coming back, she's going on a date with Peter Parker. Like, do you realize how bad this is? Now, if Gwen Stacy came back and happened to be in this story, but didn't go on a date with Peter Parker, it probably would be fine. That would be very much teetering on the edge of not being okay, but I could probably deal with it. And the reason for that is because it was the importance of the love that Gwen and Peter had for each other that made her death so impactful. So if she didn't end up dating Peter again, you know, and she came back, it wouldn't really be that detrimental. Like, it would kind of be similar along the lines of Spider-Gwen coming to the 616 universe every once in a while and kind of interacting with Spider-Man. It would kind of be on that same level, but the fact that they're going on a date makes it even worse. So sure, you can have Gwen Stacy come back as Spider-Gwen or another role completely away from the character of Peter Parker, but when you start putting her character with Peter again, you are kind of going back on everything that you already built up for the last 50 years or so. Now, this effect is something I like to call the Palpatine effect. Now, if you guys don't know, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, did this exact same thing, but it did it with its main villain, Emperor Palpatine. Essentially, the main story from Star Wars 1 all the way to Star Wars 6, Return of the Jedi, is the fall to the darkness and then the eventual redemption of the character of Anakin Skywalker. And then after 6 films, Anakin eventually kills the Emperor to save his son. The Emperor's death is not only the most significant thing to happen in the entire saga, it is the literal embodiment of the redemption of Darth Vader, which makes it so important. However, in Episode 9, they decide to bring Palpatine back, which completely undoes any significance of Darth Vader's character arc. If the Emperor was just going to come back, then what was the entire point of Anakin sacrificing himself? There literally wouldn't be one. And this is exactly the same mindset I have going into this comic if they are going to have Peter go on a date with Gwen Stacy again. It just doesn't make any sense from a narrative and storytelling perspective. The same thing would be true if they brought RDJ back to play Tony Stark again in the MCU. It's like, don't do that because that's going to undo everything that the first 3 phases built to in Avengers Endgame. Now, I must say, I do have one saving grace with this, and that's the fact that Greg Weisman is writing this story. I'm really hoping that Greg Weisman has a trick up his sleeve. Everyone knows that he is a massive influence and a big part of the Spectacular Spider-Man TV show that we got all the way back in 2008, and that's largely considered one of the best Spider-Man adaptations that we have ever gotten. So if there's one person that could maybe pull a story off like this, it is Greg Weisman, and I'm really hoping that there is going to be some kind of twist in here that we don't really see coming. We also know that the Jackal is going to be a big villain at the start of this series as well, so there's a very big chance that this is going to be a clone of Gwen Stacy, and her character will somehow tie into the main mystery of the series that Miles and Peter will have to uncover. I'm just scared that with the emergence of her character and their willingness to put her on a date with Peter, that it's just going to completely diminish the importance of her character's death and kind of undo everything that we've gotten for the last 50 years or so. Marvel for years have been teetering on the edge of bringing Gwen Stacy back, but every time they do, they manage to somehow do it in a way where they just about get away with it. They just about don't undo the significance of her death and anything that came before because they are just about playing it safe. They usually use Gwen as a metaphor for some hardship Peter is going through. A recent example of this is of course Judgment Day from the Zeb Wells run, where they did exactly that. They brought Gwen Stacy back for a period of time, but then she ended up disappearing again. Marvel have this huge obsession with wanting to bring Gwen Stacy back, and I'm really scared we're at the point right now with this new series where they are going to just eventually just do it. Like, they're just not holding back. Here's Gwen Stacy again. In all else, I'm really excited for it. Greg Weisman, great writer, handled Spider-Man really well before. I can't complain. I'm just scared that they're bringing Gwen back and it's going to really character assassinate Peter Parker and everything that story stood for way back in the 70s. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace.